There is simply no contest between American and Iranian firepower. In the Gulf itself, the U.S. has 1 cruiser, 4 modern destroyers, and 7 frigates, and there's a carrier task force just outside the Gulf. Iran has 3 aging destroyers, 2 working frigates now, a dozen missile boats, and about 50 Swedish speedboats armed with machine guns and rocket-propelled grenades. So whatever the political ramifications of this fighting between Iran and the U.S., when President Reagan decided to go ahead, he could do so in the full knowledge that the U.S. fleet could take care of itself. Sam Donaldson is at the White House.
In explaining why he ordered today's attack on Iranian oil platforms, President Reagan called it an act of deterrence.
We've taken this action to make certain the Iranians have no illusions about the cost of irresponsible behavior. We aim to deter further Iranian aggression, not provoke it. They must know that we will protect our ships, and if they threaten us, they'll pay a price.
Last September, the U.S. captured, then scuttled, the Iran Odger mine-laying ship, which had been caught in the act. Last October, the U.S. destroyed an Iranian oil platform after an Iranian missile struck a U.S.-flagged ship. So when last Thursday, the U.S. frigate Samuel B. Roberts was heavily damaged by a newly laid Iranian mine, it wasn't even close, according to sources. The president and his principal advisors reviewed military options the next day, Friday, and last night briefed congressional leaders at the White House on the plan. Major European allies were notified. So confident was the president that U.S. forces were prepared that he retired for the night before the attack began. Press spokesman Marlin Fitzwater, who briefed reporters well before dawn, said officials were prepared for the Iranians to shoot back today. But he later acknowledged the protracted fierceness of the Iranian response was somewhat surprising. On the campaign trail, Vice President Bush said U.S. resolve would not weaken no matter what.
We don't seek a confrontation with Iran, but we're going to meet our obligations, and we're going to live up to our commitments.
Tomorrow, the president meets again with his national security advisors to consider whether further military action is warranted. Convinced as he is that his firm policy in the Gulf is not only the right course, but in this case, the popular one as well. Sam Donaldson, ABC News, the White House.
This is British officials were saying, look, if the Iranians would stop attacking, we would stop firing back. Don't get me wrong, the U.S. is clearly prepared to defend its interests in the Persian Gulf, but there was no sense here today in Washington that the administration was looking for trouble.
Thank you very much, Chris Wallace, tonight at the White House. In a moment, the U.S. reaction today to the assassination of Abu Jihad and the street fight called the New York presidential primary.
Ran last fall, Iran has kept a relatively low profile, no visible support for terrorist activities, and no open harassment of American ships in the Persian Gulf.
We had certainly hoped from our perspective that following our actions and our warnings of last fall that the Iranians had taken that message on board.
But earlier this month came the hijacking of a Kuwaiti passenger plane with a 3-day layover in Iran and apparent Iranian help for the hijackers. Then last week, a new minefield was discovered in the Persian Gulf.
Now suddenly they're taking a lot of risks. Laying mines, shooting at American ships and airplanes. This suggests a calculated effort by the Khomeini regime to stir up trouble for the United States.
The answer to why most probably can be found in the continuing struggle for power in Iran. Factions are bitterly divided. Some want an end to the bloody 8-year-old war with Iraq, some a more moderate stance towards the West. But the strongest voices apparently want something else.
There are, of course, still some factions who believe that they want to export the revolution and that they don't want any rapprochement with the United States, and that it is in their interest to keep the hot wars going.
One way to keep all the factions in line is to create an incident with the great Satan, the United States. It is such a hated symbol in Iran that when invoked, it can create amazing unity when nothing else can. John McWethy, ABC News, the State Department.
That Kuwaiti jet that John referred to, hijacked nearly 2 weeks ago, is still on the ground at the airport in Algiers tonight. One of the 31 hostages, a member of the Kuwaiti royal family, literally pleaded for Kuwait to release 17 imprisoned terrorists as the hijackers demand. There is still no sign that Kuwait will give in to those demands. In a moment, the strong suggestion that Israel was behind the weekend murder of the PLO.
Activate whatever terrorist networks that they have. This may be their excuse.
The State Department has already warned U.S. embassies abroad to be on the alert. The downing of an Iranian airliner by an American ship fighting off Iranian gunboats has caused more than a few ripples in the Persian Gulf. At least 290 passengers and crew died in the incident.